the globalist cabal uniting together yesterday to slam the Trump administration, to encourage all of us to be more globally fine-tuned as a country. That the country needs to come together to celebrate our, quote, values. The values. What values are those? What? Let's, by the way, we never really heard from George W. Bush, did we, when we had 8 years of disaster of Barack Obama? No, instead he was saying nice things about Barack Obama.
The president had a policy, George W. Bush, of not criticizing a sitting president.
Oh, but he didn't mention Trump by name yesterday. Oh, okay. So think about this. George W. Bush went out of office, left office with a approval rating hovering between, 22 and 29%, depending on what poll you looked at. We had lost the House and then the Senate and then the presidency in his second term. House, Senate, presidency. We had to vote on the disaster bailouts to rescue the credit markets in the United States in the fall of 2008, which was the fall of Bushism. The bailouts cost the taxpayers billions of dollars. The bailout money, most of it ended up going to the well-heeled. How about the fact that even foreign companies, foreign entities ended up getting bits and pieces of the bailout money? In Billionaire at the Barricades, the endless war and shamnesty chapter describes exactly the dynamic that is in play now. Going back to 2006 and 2007, which was the real end of Bushism in the Republican Party, of any type of Bushism that would be nationally palatable to the electorate. No one's going to support this because it's open borders, endless wars.
You need to play the other George W. Bush bites. This speech, it really was almost an apology for the Bush presidency, but asking Americans to go back to where we were.
Well, this period of time was among the most alarming and hopeful of the Bush presidency. Alarming because never in my life had I seen political leaders display such contempt and indifference toward the people they claim to represent. Hopeful because working Americans mounted a brave and tireless uprising and crushed the establishment's attempts to force immigration amnesty on the nation. That was in 2007. The party is the people. Without the people, there is no Republican Party. What happened in 2007? The people rose up against what George W. Bush was trying to do. And let me not also forget to mention the rest of the calamity that had befallen our nation at the hands of 8 years of George W. Bush. He came into office with a 4.2% unemployment rate. He left office with a 7.8% unemployment rate. Are those the values we want to keep going? Household income when he came into office, $57,000 median household income, $790. $57,000. He left office. He went the other way with the median income, $53,376.
An outright fabrication.
In Afghanistan, in Iraq, under George W. Bush, 6,648 died of our bravest. These wars have cost the U.S. taxpayers $4 trillion.
Just under Bush.
Just
under George W. Bush, not Obama.
Well, no, remember
when
they were claiming in the early months of the Iraq War that it would cost anywhere between $300 and $400 billion? That would be that's the estimates. Hard to estimate. Estimate by $300 and $400 billion. You go before Congress. $4 trillion later. Now, This was all based on what? Speaking of fabrications, however some people will say, well, look, the intelligence community got it wrong and everybody had it wrong. But for a lot of Americans, it seemed in retrospect to be a fabrication.
As a council, we as the United Nations say, enough, enough. The gravity of this moment is matched by the gravity of the threat that Iraq's weapons of mass destruction pose to the world.
An outright fabrication.
Well. I mean, for him to get up yesterday with the carnage that resulted after 8 years, political, military, our domestic economy in tatters. You couldn't have driven the economy down further short of having another Great Depression. And he's getting up there yesterday and he's criticizing the populist movement that has rescued the Republican Party from the depths of despair. He never raised a voice when we were being attacked in the, quote, war on women narrative. When Republicans were being made out to be racist and still are by the left. When Donald Trump, Mitt Romney, and even John McCain, their visage was mutilated in hanging in effigy at some various protests, at the anti-WTO protests and the anti-Wall Street protests. Remember the things that they were saying? But the things that were said about Republicans, the things that were done to this country in the Supreme Court, definition of marriage, which he supposedly was, he was all for traditional marriage, never a peep from George W. Bush.
Well, he did give us Sam Alito and John Roberts, but only, as you point out in the book, after you had to take down Harriet Miers.
Yeah, only after the conservatives rescued a seat on the Supreme Court because George W. Bush wanted to put his friend on the court, who I'm sure is a nice person, but wouldn't have been in the top 10,000 lawyers in the country who anyone would have ever considered for the court. He so turned the Republican Party into this party of military intervention, big spending, blowing the budget, doubling the national debt. And it's Donald Trump's the problem? Donald Trump was the solution to the problem that you helped create and that Barack Obama continued. So as I point out in Billionaire at the Barricades, these families, the Bushes, the Clintons, and the Obamas, have more in common with each other politically and have more ties to each other in terms of policy and understanding. They share the same disdain for the American middle class in their policies and I would say in their pronouncements yesterday. They have more in common among each other than they do with you and your hopes and dreams. When we come back, the man who oversaw the gutting of the Republican Party from 2006 to 2008 will continue to criticize the man who won the election last November after never having made a peep about what Barack Obama had done to this country with stimulus spending, with Obamacare, with court decisions that turned our families upside down. Never a peep. Where was he, by the way, when Hillary Clinton was calling us a basket of deplorables? Where was he? Did he stand up for the people? Where was he when we found out that China was cheating on all these trade deals? Did he speak a word? Where was he when NAFTA turned out to help deindustrialize the automobile industry in the United States, shipping jobs over to Mexico? Because he said that NAFTA was going to work out great for us, didn't he? Where was he? Well, you know where he was? He was finger painting, whatever he does with that painting he does. He was moving the brush around his ranch and finger painting. But now he comes out when the globalists ask him to. I'd love to know who wrote that speech for him. I bet it was Pete Wehner, Michael Gerson, or one of those, crowning glories of the globalist movement. Your reaction to the Bush critique. Are these the values that you want to guide our country? Globalism, more military interventionism, more runaway spending, more immigration amnesty. 855-40-LAURA. The Bushes are not going to go quietly into that good night, and I will remind you why he's so really, really upset. What is this a real, it's policy, but it's personal. Because no one criticizes the Bushes and gets away with it. Stay with us.